properly. But I want to mention, Mick, before we get into this, that Eddie Guerrero, the late great Eddie Guerrero, had been 51 years old on Tuesday.
51 years of age. R.I.P. Eddie Guerrero, just one of the greatest wrestlers I've ever seen. And even towards the end, even though he was a bit broke up and beat up from his years of wrestling, he'll never be forgotten.
No, I'll never forget when Eddie died in November of 2005. I was in first year of secondary school. I'll never forget, hate to say it on air, but I'll never forget the guy who I was sitting beside told me that Eddie had died. That was on a Monday morning. Obviously he had died this Sunday over in America, but the internet in Ireland was in its infancy then, and rumours were rampant about what happened to him. But the guy that told me, who broke the news to me, told me that Eddie killed himself.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'll never forget.
He probably just took a guess, because so many wrestlers do that.
Yeah, one 13-year-old taking a guess to another 13-year-old. I remember I was left with that. It was like a really early morning French class. I'll never forget it. French. I was in French. It was like my second class of the day. I remember being left with that the whole day, that Eddie had died. And he'd killed. Thinking he had took his own life. Ridiculous.
I remember when Benoit died,
Benoit did take his own life.
Yeah, when Benoit did actually take his own life, I remember my auntie rang me up and she said, "Did you hear about the wrestler just after dying?" And I was like, "Who?" She goes, "Yeah, it's all over the paper. Chris Benoit is his name."
Benoit.
And I was like, Who is she talking about? And it was only about an hour later, I was like, oh yeah, it's actually Chris Benoit. I looked it up, couldn't actually believe it. Yeah, obviously nobody really knew until a few days later, what truly happened. But
yeah, the Benoit stuff that made like the news over here, which is really rare.
It was in the paper, yeah.
Was it in the paper?
Yeah, it was in the Sun. That's where my auntie read it.
I remember my dad hearing it on the radio and telling me. But funnily enough, though, I remember when the British Bulldog died in 2002, my dad was able to tell me that the Bulldog had died.
Oh, yeah.
Died of heart failure, pretty similar to the way Eddie went. But yeah, this is getting really sad, but we should be really celebrating the life and the career of Eddie Guerrero, one of the all-time greats, one of my favourites, really.
Awesome to look at. Whether a baby face or a heel, just always amazing to look at. You root for him either way.
One of my favourites of all time, and I mean, Benoit is not and never will be, and should he never be celebrated in any way, shape or form. But it's great to see that Eddie Guerrero's memory is alive and well 13 years after his passing. Happy birthday, Eddie Guerrero.
Happy birthday, Eddie Guerrero. But like, as bad as that whole that whole Benoit thing, of course it's absolutely tragic and stuff, but Benoit was an unbelievable wrestler. And it's sad only because it's just like all his stuff kind of doesn't exist now, according to the WWE. They've never mentioned it. I know all the stuff, they finally stopped editing his stuff. Do you remember, did you ever watch any of the DVDs from around 2008, 9, 10, 11 era? And any time there was Benoit on TV, the camera either it is edited away from him, or the comment, like, I remember there was a Money in the Bank DVD anthology, and in the first one Chris Benoit's in it, but every time Chris Benoit is actually in the ring and he's the main focus, because the way everyone else always ends up getting thrown out of the ring, the commentators were literally edited, so nothing was said for about 5 minutes. Yeah, but it was that's weird.
It's become okay now. It's not as you're saying, it's not as heavily edited. But when you think about it, how could they show?
They'd have to edit everything.
Remember Benoit's mannerisms, the way he would bring his thumb across his throat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How could you show that? And the man is literally a murderer.
He was unwell though as well, wasn't he? He wasn't just a psycho who done it for evilness sake. He was just unwell and he was a bit crazy. I'm not defending him, of course, but it's. No one really knows the whole truth of what really happened, except them. So
no, and it'll never be known. That's the sad thing.
It's the sad thing about it. But I every time I look at one of his matches, it always kind of makes me go, I can't believe he did that to his family. But also, what an unbelievable wrestler he was. It's just, I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal performer, really was.
Him and Eddie, what matches they had.
Yeah,
him and Kurt.
To think they're both gone now, but at least we can enjoy. I do think it's become acceptable to enjoy a Benoit match or a moment. Not that it will ever be featured on any kind of a retrospective DVD they can put out or the network. But I think with the help of people like Jericho, Jericho had Meltzer on his podcast this summer, and they reviewed kind of Benoit's career.
Yeah.
And did kind of a little retrospective of Benoit's career, which was pretty big to kind of acknowledge him 11 years after the murders. So I think it's slightly becoming more acceptable to talk about him, at least. He was kind of like the boogeyman.
Well, I think it was just more taboo to talk about him when it was anything to do with WWE, as opposed to, because everyone else they'd always talk about it if they had their own podcasts and stuff, but no, WWE of course would never ever mention it. I remember when it broke out, sure, it wasn't Bret Hart and Jericho and all, weren't they on the news and they were talking about it and stuff?
Yeah, it would have made mainstream news in America, obviously. A famous wrestler murdering his family. Yeah, Jericho was on Larry King, so was Bret Hart. But then there was then there was dipsticks like Mark Mero coming out of the woodwork, wanting to be featured, wanting their 5 minutes of fame again. There was dipsticks like that all over the place.
Was he just on about the concussion stuff?
No, because that wasn't even the conversation back then.
Okay.
Like this CTE stuff is so new. That wasn't even. It was roid rage, which is what it was being blamed on at the time. No, it was certainly what concussions really didn't kind of come into it for a while.
Thing, like, man, if you abuse anything, it's gonna be bad. Like whether it's steroids or whether it's vitamin tablets, you know what I mean? You abuse anything that's bad for you. Like,
yeah, it's sad, you know. And as you said, it'll only be we'll never know what happened to him.
Absolutely never know.
Or why he did what he did. And those, I think it was Jericho that said it, that, you know, you always see these clowns online. If you're in any sort of group with mass wrestling fans in it, there'll always be the one guy that will ask, why isn't Chris Benoit in the Hall of Fame? What kind of an asinine question is that? How could you even think about celebrating? Like, it's okay to look back on his career, but at the end of the day, what he did in the last 3 years of his life will forever overshadow his career. There's no other way you can cut it. It's inexcusable.
Up until that happened, I truly believe that Benoit is probably one of the best wrestlers that's ever been. I think, and that's the thing. He'll probably never ever be officially counted as that because of the tragedy that happened.
No, and he doesn't deserve to be.
He doesn't deserve to be. But like, every time I look back at his match, I always just kind of go, there's just something just so intense about him. You know what I mean? Maybe just because he was battling an awful lot of demons anyway. I'm not sure. Was he ever known to have hurt people?
He broke Sabu's neck in ECW.
What, like, was that a regular thing that he always hurt people like that? Because anyone can hurt anyone. No,
not that I know of. I know he dropped Sabu on his head. It was an accident. These things happen. Benoit had his own neck broken by his own hands, but no, I don't think he was known for injuring people per se. No,
I'm sure he gave people an awful lot of red chests.
Absolutely, he was stiff. He was stiff as the day was long, but no, I don't think he had a tendency to hurt people. The only thing, I know we're kind of after giving a bit of time to Benoit. I can't believe we're actually doing so. That's the one thing I don't like, is that how Eddie and Benoit are they'll always be kind of linked together in that regard. And you can't kind of talk about Eddie without talking about Benoit. Whereas I really just wanted to talk about Eddie. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
But they're kind of meshed like that, and it's kind of sad because Eddie Guerrero was a guy that was taken away from the world far too soon. He was 38 years old. Benoit was 40 when he died.
40, yeah, because that seems to be the age for wrestlers to go, is about 40, and Bulldog died at 42.
It is, and a happy birthday to Eddie Guerrero.